Okay, good afternoon, everyone. I want to thank everyone for attending this webinar brought to you by the Nonprofit Resource Hub. It's great to see so many familiar names in our chat room. Look forward to being able to see you in person someday soon. We have a great event today. Rick Peck from the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation is with us today, and he will be speaking about 5 big fundraising topics every nonprofit needs to address ASAP. I think we can all agree in our current climate that this is really important information, and we are very excited to hear about Rick's presentation. So my name is Ed Probst. I am the founding partner of the Vanguard Agency, which is an employee benefits firm located in Melville, Long Island, and we work with many nonprofits. Myself and my partners, Vince Blasi and Tommy DeMisa, are really proud to be part and be a founding member of the Nonprofit Resource Hub. And just to give you some insight as to what we are, for those of you who don't know us, the Nonprofit Resource Hub is a trade association whose mission is to serve, educate, connect, and be a resource to its members and the nonprofit community as a whole. At the same time, our goal is to serve the nonprofit sector as a bridge, if you will, helping connect nonprofits to resources they need and to each other. So some of the ways that we accomplish our mission and goals, one is through our associate membership program. We have some of them with us today, and we're going to announce who they are soon. But our associate membership program is one that we put together where it's a vetted membership program that of for-profit organizations that pay dues in our organization and allow us to provide resources to the nonprofit sector. It is an industry-specific membership, so we have one per category, and these organizations are very rigorously vetted, and that's one of the value props that we bring as the nonprofit organization, the Nonprofit Resource Hub. And I should mention also that the Nonprofit Resource Hub is a nonprofit organization in itself. We're continuously trying to bring on new associate members to our vetting process. And we would even ask all of you, if you work with any professionals that you feel are really dialed into the nonprofit sector and can be a benefit to our organization, please feel free to reach out to us and refer us to those people so that we can put them through our vetting process and hopefully fill some of the categories that we are looking to fill. The other thing we do is we host networking sessions and events that foster opportunities for collaboration. You know, before COVID-19 crisis hit, we had started doing some in-person collaboration networking events that we thought were really successful. Obviously, right now, those have to be on pause, but we intend fully to get back to normal once our state is back to normal and country, if you will. So that we can start presenting some of these collaboratory efforts. We provide information and insight, and you'll see our website and some of the publications. We just put out our newsletter yesterday. If you haven't seen it, reach out to us and let us know. It's a great resource for information. We provide expert advice and consultation through our webinars, as you're about to hear today, and the content on our website. And we serve as a one-stop resource hub for nonprofits. And we're really looking to become a single point of information for you. The organization was founded by 5 key members that I'll announce right now. Ken Serini and his team over at Serini Associates, David Goldstein and Sir Tillman Ballin Attorneys, Frank Orzo and Christine Deska at Nonprofit Sector Strategies, Danette O'Connell from Triumph International, Ed Probst, Vince Blasi, and Tommy DeMisa from the Vanguard Insurance Agency. So all of these organizations were instrumental in providing, in designing and creating the Nonprofit Resource Hub, and all have really deep ties to the nonprofit community and really just an appetite for giving back to that community. I do want to mention our new website is up and running. It looks great. It's fully functional. You can add your events to our calendar. We have articles there. Many of them are posted to the website. And once you join as a nonprofit member, you can put your logo and your mission and links to, on our website as well. And I'll take that time to mention that right now, we have, if you don't know about our nonprofit membership program, take a look at our website. You can sign up right there, and we're encouraging nonprofits to sign up and become members. It's completely complimentary. There are no costs associated with being a member of the Nonprofit Resource Hub. And right now we're running a promotion that started on November 18th and ends on December 31st. We will randomly be picking 5 nonprofits that sign up on our website as nonprofit members between that time to receive a $200 award from the Nonprofit Resource Hub. So get yourself signed up as soon as possible, hopefully before December 31st, and we'll get you into that that reward so that you might win $200 for your organization. I also want to announce and recognize our nonprofit associate members that are signed up as associate members to date. In our staffing category, we want to thank Gail Brandell from PNP Staffing for being a part of the Resource Hub. In our payroll category, Michael D'Onofrio and his team over at Premier Payroll Services. In our fundraising and event management category, we have Darren Port at Powered by Professionals. Our advertising partner is Noel Robb over at 5 Star Advertising. From an investment perspective, our investment advisor is Matt Thompson. He's at Morgan Stanley. Property and casualty, we have Michael Fleischer from Sterling Risk. On the life insurance side, we have James McTighe from Lee Nolan Caraglian. On the HR law side, Doug Rowe from Sir Tillman Ballin, Adler and Hyman. And outsourced controller category, we have Eleanor Hume from Your Part-Time Controller. So once again, these folks will put through a vetting process that we created, and they've done a great job so far, and we're really appreciative of their partnership. And you should take time to make sure that you get familiar with all these people. And thanks again to our associate members for being part of our Nonprofit Resource Hub. That said, I just want to run through the agenda real quick, and then we're going to get to why you're all here. The webinar will last till about 12:40, and after that, we're going to do a Q&A and try to wrap everybody up and be on your way by 1 p.m. So if you do have questions, you can type them in the chat, and Rick will try to address them. And with that, I want to turn it over to Rick Peck. But before, just want to introduce him. Rick Peck is the vice president at the New Hampshire Philanthropic Foundation. Before joining the foundation, Rick served Dartmouth Hitchcock Health and the Giesel School of Medicine as director of individual giving and gift planning, where he worked with grateful patients and families, as well as medical school alumni to achieve their philanthropic goals. He's also served Dartmouth College as an associate director of gift planning, working with the alumni of the undergraduate college. Rick is a certified financial planner, a chartered advisor in philanthropy, and a chartered financial consultant. He holds an MBA from Baker College in Michigan and a BA from the University of Massachusetts. Rick is a volunteer member of the Marketing Development Committee of the Grafton County Senior Citizens Council in Lebanon, New Hampshire. He also serves on the New Hampshire Race and Equity All Work Group and the Civic Engagement Subgroup of Concord, New Hampshire, and he is a new member of the Board of Directors of the International Association of Advisors in Philanthropy. Rick and his wife Claudette live in Concord, New Hampshire. So Rick, welcome today, and thank you for joining us. Looking forward to hearing your presentation.
Thank you very much, Ed. I appreciate that. And I just want to thank you, Ed, Tommy, in the background, also Kellyanne, and especially Danette, who helped me prepare for today. And she and I had some terrific email exchanges around the topics of today that hopefully will resonate with all of you. The topics really have come from a place of me over the past 15 years, thinking about certain things that I felt maybe should be more of a concentration area for a lot of nonprofits. So I bring those to you today in these 5 different topics, and hopefully we'll generate some good discussion. So I will, with Kellyanne's help, present my just PowerPoint, which is just a jumping off point for the 5 different topics. And then I'll move through each of the 5. And as Ed said, probably around 12:40, we'll stop and we'll entertain some questions, Q&A. So with that said, I think I will be able to start with sharing my screen here. And here we go. All right. So I am with the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. Just to really briefly, that's a statewide community foundation. It has about $820 million in assets. It's the 2nd largest community foundation in New England and about the 30th largest out of about 900 across the United States, just to give you some perspective. We have about 53 people at the foundation. We took in about $46 million of new money last year, and we spent about $47 million in grants, and 3/4 of those grants stayed in the state of New Hampshire, and the other 25% went to the surrounding states and other parts of the country and even internationally. So this year we're happily, despite the craziness of the pandemic, we are happily on track to receive over $50 million in donations. And interestingly, about 2/3 of those donations come from existing donors and 1/3 come from brand new donors. So that just gives you a little bit of background. So topic number 1, how are non-cash gifts overlooked from a nonprofit's top donors? So I wanted to just dive into that a little bit today in the sense of just talking about that. So cash is always king. That is one thing that I find to be always true. Everyone wants to donate cash to a nonprofit, but they don't necessarily, the nonprofit doesn't necessarily think about all the different types of assets that a donor might have. So small dollars are generally solicited in the form of an annual fund solicitation, or just generally throughout the year, asking for things through something such as an event or something small. And so that's generally the way that these are couched. But much of people's assets are in retirement plans and real estate, if you look at the statistics. So I just wanted to buzz through other types of assets or things that people might want to consider outside of cash. So for example, as it relates to retirement plans, people have individual retirement plans, IRAs. And if one is 70 and a half or older, that individual can take up to $100,000 per year and donate those directly to a nonprofit of their choice, that $100,000 or less, to a nonprofit of their choice without it touching their taxable income. So that's just something to advertise, qualified charitable distributions from IRAs, just letting people know about that. And a lot of what I'll talk about today is just as you listen to what I'm saying, I just think about what you can do to do some soft advertising, awareness marketing in different ways, of the different things that I talk about. Think about how you might incorporate those into your own work and how you can slip in a topic or two as you go. So qualified charitable distributions. Again, people in a normal year would be able to take required minimum distributions from their IRAs, whether they want to or not. They would normally have to, and now that's been deferred to age 72. But when people have to do it, they don't always necessarily want to do it. They don't want to be taxed on those dollars. They don't need the dollars, and they just as soon send them over to a nonprofit of their choice. So just keep that in mind as something to advertise. Also, real estate. I mentioned a lot of people's assets are in real estate. So for example, when we think about the different ways one might donate real estate, I'll just mention a few. An outright gift of real estate is just what it sounds like. It's presented to a nonprofit, and then it's accepted or rejected based on the due diligence that the nonprofit might do. And actually, let me just stop right here and say, as you listen to what I'm saying, you might say, well, we can't take in gifts of non-cash. We just don't do that. Well, that's where a community foundation or even a commercial donor advised fund sponsor might be able to help you with that. So just because you as an entity can't take it in doesn't mean that it's not something you should advertise, knowing that you have some back office partners who can help you do that. So just keep that in mind as well. So different ways to donate real estate: an outright gift, a bargain sale, which means it's partial sale, partial gift. That can be attractive to people who want cash now for their real estate, but they don't necessarily want to sell it for full price. So the other part of that is a donation, and that can be very attractive to some individuals. And then a CRT, that's a charitable remainder trust. Sometimes people donate real estate into a charitable remainder trust, and the income beneficiary would receive a stream of income, perhaps quarterly and perhaps for the rest of their lives. So you can take an illiquid asset that people don't necessarily want and turn it into a stream of income, with the remainder going to the nonprofit of their choice. And we at the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation do not trustee charitable remainder trust, but there's plenty of trust companies that would do that, and that's just a matter of taking on the paperwork. So just other things I want to talk about as relates to non-cash, highly appreciated publicly traded securities. I'm surprised how many nonprofits don't necessarily advertise for those, because lots of people have stocks that they've held for a long, long time, and they don't necessarily want to sell those and incur capital gains, but they would be happy to donate those. So again, even if you as a nonprofit don't do that, you should be thinking about what partners could we connect with to be able to help us make those donations. Closely held stock is also something that we've been presented with more. Closely held stock is private stock. It's not publicly traded, which means if it's donated to the entity, it has to be sold to probably a private entity, maybe the company that holds that stock. You can sell it back to them. So that's actually more popular than one might think. There's lots of people who have closely held stock that they would like to donate. Life insurance. So whether it's donating the cash value or just naming the nonprofit as a beneficiary of the life insurance policy is something that is also available for donors to consider. Tangible personal property, that is jewelry, artwork, antiques, things that people might have that they've inherited, and again, not sure exactly what they would do with that. So that could be something they could donate. And cryptocurrency, we at the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation have not been presented with a potential gift of cryptocurrency, but I read statistics nationally that say cryptocurrency is out there. It's here to stay as far as many people are concerned, and there are parties that can help receive that cryptocurrency for a fee. For example, the Silicon Valley Community Foundation does that, and they will accept that for a fee, and then they will take the net proceeds and transfer those out to the nonprofit. So the moral of the story is really that you want to ensure that you partner with an organization as your back office to help you secure these types of things, and just let your donors know that you're open to the conversation, because they may be surprised that you do that, or at least that you'd be able to entertain that, and they would be able to dispose of an asset that they might not normally be able to do to take care of. So we'll move on here to the next slide. I can pull that up. All right, sorry, I'm having a little technical difficulty here. All right. So how have bequests benefited your institution? This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart, because I was a planned giving officer at Dartmouth College. That's where I started. And I found that it was something that we had a department, a planned giving department that was 10 people. And that was very unusual back in 2005 to have a planned giving office with 10 people. To have a planned giving office at all, most institutions would would kill for something like that. But we did, and what I did was I just was talking about planned giving all the time: charitable gift annuities, charitable remainder trusts, bequest intentions, real estate gifts. And what I found was people are open to, again, hearing about such things and not necessarily understanding how those work. So what I encourage all of you to do, if you haven't done it already, is look at what you're asking for now. Do you even advertise for bequest intentions? Do you let people know that your institution is open to receiving such gifts? And have you done an analysis to look back and say, we have received some of the largest gifts to the institution through bequests? The New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, for example, just this year received an unrestricted bequest of $5 million. That's significant. We found also through analysis that 20% of the gifts that we receive each year are from bequests, which is significant. So I'm not sure that a lot of institutions analyze that and say, wow, a big part of our contributed revenue is from bequests. So how do we make sure that people know about that? So with that said, I just think, okay, well, something as simple as, do you advertise your bequest intentions? If you were to do this, do you put it on your website? Do people know that you might have some sample language you could offer to professionals? And what else do you do? For example, at Dartmouth College, they used to include a buck slip with a gift receipt and say, did you know about planned giving? Did you know that we offer these things? So you can do it through flyers. You can do it through word of mouth. There's lots of different ways you can tell stories. There's lots of stories to be told. So just keep that in mind, that people don't know. Back to my first slide, people really don't know what types of assets they could present to you, or what types of ways they can present gifts to you. So it's important for you to continue to let people know what you can do and what you want. And maybe just the last point about bequests, we did an analysis and looked at what kind of bequests we received at the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. And then we looked at, of course, what we want. So we said, well, moving forward, if we're going to be advertising for bequests or bequest intentions, we do it through, we talk about scholarship, we would talk about unrestricted bequests, and when we would talk about something called a field of interest fund, which is a way to just help in one specific niche or theme. So we knew that's what we would want to lean into if we told any stories in the future, either with living potential donors or people who have passed away, and what their story is. So again, something to think about as it relates to bequest intentions and such. So the next slide I just wanted to talk about was, do you know what kind of impact your donors are making in the community? What kind of impact are they trying to make beyond your own nonprofit institution? For what I've seen, especially with higher net worth donors, they have an allegiance to your institution, but they don't necessarily only support you. And I know that might seem like a very obvious thing to say, but I think one of the best things that a nonprofit can do is just look at the landscape around you and say, okay, what is the problem, or what is the issue that the donor is trying to solve? So for example, in the introduction that Ed gave, talked about the Grafton County Senior Citizens Council. So that's a group that helps support older people through providing meals to them or transportation. So a good way to look at it is, if a donor comes along and wants to give to the Grafton County Senior Citizens Council, they might be interested in how we're helping seniors writ large, not just what the Grafton County Senior Citizens Council is doing, but what other nonprofits are doing, or what other entities are doing to help the mature community, the senior citizen community. So, but I don't know that a lot of nonprofits can tell that story. They might feel like it's counterintuitive. Why would I tell the story of other nonprofits or other entities that are making a difference with this particular constituency? The donors might want to give to those institutions and not give to my institution. That might be the way people think about that. But again, my experience with working with high net worth and sometimes ultra high net worth donors is they're interested in solving a problem. They're looking at the entire picture, and they want to be educated about the different entities that can help solve that particular problem. So my suggestion is to make sure that you know what that story is and that you're not afraid to touch on that, because all boats can rise. The donor can step forward and support all these different institutions at a fairly high level if they feel like you are a good conduit, you are a good teacher about what's happening in that particular niche. So that's my suggestion is know the story, know the whole story, and know who are the partners that might not be part of your own nonprofit institution, but might be there as part of the overall narrative. The fourth topic of today I just wanted to address is family philanthropy. So this is continuing to be a hot topic as it relates to, for example, first generation. Maybe they are business leaders, they've been philanthropic their whole lives, husband and wife, for example, and very proud of what they've done, very concerned about their particular areas of interest. And the concern is, will the next generation want to continue in the same vein? And that doesn't necessarily mean that the husband and wife or the first generation is thinking that the second generation or the third generation has to do exactly what they've done from a philanthropic standpoint. That's not necessarily so. I think they're more concerned that the second and third generation just continue to be well-versed in what is needed in the community, how the family, as part of the legacy, can continue to make a positive impact in the world. So sometimes what we'll do at the Charitable Foundation is we'll have the professional advisor gather the family or gather a few members of the family, and then we'll play a game with them, and we call it 2164 or Picture Your Legacy. It's a company called 2164, 21/64 produces these cards called Picture Your Legacy. And what you can do, or what we've done, is you can sit with the first generation, maybe second generation, maybe third generation, and you pull out these picture cards, and everybody pulls out 2 or 3 or 4 cards that resonate with them. And then they go around the table and they explain, why does that resonate with you? And that sounds like a very simple and elemental type of exercise, but I'll tell you, it is so powerful. There's just something that evokes strong emotion from people. And people learn from other people. First generation will learn about the second generation and what's important to them, and second generation learns about the first. And it becomes a nice, rich conversation about people's values and what they're trying to accomplish in the world, or what they feel is important. So it becomes part of this family narrative, a mesh that can be extremely rich and robust as far as how that discussion plays itself out. So how does it positively affect your nonprofit? It allows you to be a forum for, again, sort of what I was talking about in the prior slide. What's the broader narrative? What's happening in the community? And family philanthropy, the same type of thing. What are the problems of the world? And how can your nonprofit be part of that solution? And so you will be somebody who can provide an opportunity to talk about what's important to them. And chances are they're going to think your nonprofit is important to them as well. So the last thing I'll mention is, do you know your local professional advisor network? So I have, in a prior life, I was a professional advisor myself. I was a wealth advisor, and I did that for 7 years. And one of the things that I realized in looking back is the company didn't necessarily teach me about philanthropy, and I didn't really feel well versed in having a conversation with my clients about it, mainly because I was helping them get to retirement. I was helping them save for education. There was insurance needs that they had. They had all kinds of other things that they were trying to accomplish. So philanthropy wasn't necessarily on the top of the list. However, in retrospect, I wish I had that tool in my toolbox. I wish I could have talked more effectively about that, because I realized it would add to, it would be addressing in more of a holistic way what my clients were looking for. So just to hover on that for a second. So part of my job is to build relationships with professional advisors outside of New Hampshire, believe it or not, in Boston, New York, and other parts around the country, because those professional advisors have clients in New Hampshire. And then we have a team of people at the foundation who just obviously work within the state of New Hampshire with professional advisors in their regions. And not surprisingly, the professional advisors who would make referrals to us and do make referrals to us are trust and estates attorneys, wealth advisors, and CPAs, as well as other individuals who are very well connected in the business world, who think of us top of mind and are very generous and make connections for us. So I'll just tell you a story about a talk I did last November with the Association for Fundraising Professionals in Northern New England. We hosted a little breakout session at a conference, and we had a CPA, a wealth advisor, and a trust and estates attorney, and myself. We were all part of the panel. And we called this particular breakout session an advanced session, because we were talking about this topic right here: professional advisor networks. Do you know your local professionals, and so on? And we surveyed the group, and there were about 32 people in the group. And we said, how many of you proactively reach out to professional advisors in your area? And we were all shocked on the panel to see only 2 people raise their hands. Only 2 people were out trying to reach out to professional advisors and get to know them. And so the panel was speaking about that and saying, okay, well, what do you do as nonprofit fundraisers or as development officers? And it sounds like, again, the room was full of people who weren't really doing much. So the message from the panel was, get to know us, because we know we are talking to your donors and we are seeking direction. We don't necessarily know, as I was mentioning earlier, we don't always know what the language is. We don't necessarily know what the landscape is. We need some direction. And the more we get to know our local nonprofit partners, the better we will be at conveying what the needs are out there, the collective needs of the local community. So the message was, meet us where we are. If you know that we're going to be going and networking at an estate planning council meeting, then please go to the estate planning council meeting. Or if you know that there's a CPA forum where the CPAs are getting together and it's networking, go to that. And if there's an opportunity to see wealth advisors and meet them where they are, you go and meet them where they are. And of course, nothing beats a one-on-one conversation or an opportunity to present to a specific nonprofit a specific professional advisor office about what you're doing. And again, maybe a really terrific presentation would be talking about a certain topic writ large, again, like senior citizens or the environment or something, and having a few different nonprofit partners present to those professional advisors. So there's lots of different ways for you to connect with these professional advisors, and they many times are very open to hearing about what's happening out there, so they can, again, have that tool in their toolbox and be able to speak very, if not eloquently, at least somewhat constructively about what's happening, and be able to make the connections to the donors as they need to, and the potential donors. So with that, I'll stop there and see if there's any questions that we can start answering for people. Maybe Tommy or someone, would somebody like to read some questions?
I'm happy to do that for you, Rick. We have a couple questions here.
Sure.
So the first question is from Barry. He wants to know, are fundraising events within your or the hub's scope of operation, and at this time, as they'd be virtual? So do you want to speak a bit to events as we are in such a different world than we were a year ago?
Yeah, I'll just speak for the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, and maybe Tommy or someone else can chime in about Nonprofit Resource Hub. But nonprofits have very much anchored themselves to the once-a-year event, the golf tournament, the the annual fundraiser. And obviously that has really come back to bite them this year, because that was the big event that they would raise most of their money. But so now people are pivoting toward virtual solutions. So I've heard of virtual, and the ones I've heard that are most effective are pretty simple in scope. It's a terrific presentation about what the institution's doing. Again, the impact that they're making, and lots and lots of stories about what's been happening, including maybe some of the people who have benefited from the nonprofit's work. And then sometimes it's just simply, and here's what we need. Here are the needs of the organization, and here's what we would like you to consider. And I've heard of situations where hundreds of thousands of dollars are raised in that one evening from that event. And people I've talked to say it's not surprising. Some of those events are a little clunky and clumsy, and they don't convey their message very well, and they don't raise very much money. But those who convey their message well, there's a lot of emotion involved. Maybe you're hearing from the people who are benefiting from it. That can have a great resonance, and of course making it easy for people to donate on the spot if they can, or right afterwards is important. So there's many companies and organizations that can help organize virtual events, and I don't have any specifically to recommend right now, but I can just say that that's only half of it. Once the institution hires that particular entity to create that virtual event, then really it's the program itself that can resonate or not resonate and help you raise more money.
Thank you, Rick. And I do have some additional questions, but just to add a bit to that, we had Darren Port, one of our associate members of the Nonprofit Resource Hub, do a webinar just like this on November 5th. So, and that was online fundraising and virtual events, Barry. So if you want to check that out through our website, nonprofitresourcehub.org, you'll be able to get some access to that as well. So great question, and thank you, Rick. I'm just going to move to the next question for you. So this is from Paul Rubin. He was saying here, how does one get to know or cultivate relationships with foundations within the large community, such as like the Long Island Community Fund?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that question?
Sure. How do you get to, how does an organization really get to, I guess, network and then cultivate relationships with foundations? So even from your perspective, how would smaller organizations in the New Hampshire area get access to you and your team? So what's the best way for them to approach you?
I mean, people approach me all the time. Sometimes it's just simply looking up the organization, the Community Foundation online, and finding who the development officers are and talking with them. I can say the way, if just we didn't really talk today about the structure of a community foundation, but you'd better believe that the value of the Community Foundation is knowing its nonprofit partners in the community. And I'm part of the development and philanthropy services team, which interfaces with donors, potential donors, and professional advisors. But our community impact team, the ones who help move $47 million out, they're part of the money out team, and they are always talking to executive directors and other nonprofits in the community and trying to get to know them as well as possible. Because when a donor says, hey, can you help me with topic X, our value as a community foundation is to say, oh yes, of course we can. Here are 2 or 3 or 4 institutions that are doing just what you asked about, and here's what we know about them. So we value ourselves on knowledge and being able to present, because as my boss says, you don't give to the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, you give through it. So just think of it as reaching out to us to educate us about what we need to know, and then think about it as we are then going to package that for people who have either a specific request or there's a thematic overarching topic that we want to be able to have to be able to present to other people if they are looking for choices or opportunities. So if you want to reach out to me afterwards, you have a specific community foundation you're trying to connect with, I have a lot of terrific connections with community foundations across the country, especially the larger ones. And if I can't to connect you directly, I'll probably be able to find somebody who can. But you can always start with the general website address for that particular community foundation.
That's a great answer again, Rick. And I guess thematically, they're expecting these organizations to connect with them. Organizations like yours want to hear from the local nonprofits. It's obviously how the money flows, right?
Yeah, and I'll just say one thing, Tommy, too. People apply for grants. Nonprofits apply for grants. That's one terrific way to get yourself on the radar screen, of course, because you're going to put all that input into the system, and they'll have that as part of their database. But if you're not applying for grants, then getting to know the local senior program officer or somebody who's doing that community outreach is the next best thing.
Perfect. And Danette just did us a favor and put Rick's email address in the chat. So folks, attendees, please take that down and you can reach out directly to Rick. We have a question from Beth now. If stocks are transferred to a nonprofit organization, who ultimately pays the capital gain tax? Great question.
Nobody pays the capital gains tax. It is waived. So that's the beauty of donating appreciated securities, is the capital gains are waived, and 100% of that gift goes to the nonprofit, and the stock is liquidated, and the net proceeds go to whatever it is that the donor is requesting to go to. So yeah, no capital gains. If people hate capital gains, the donor or the potential donor hates capital gains, go for the highly appreciated securities. They will thank you for that, because again, there's not a lot of other options they have out there that will completely eliminate their capital gains.
I have a quick follow-up question, some of what you spoke about earlier, and I think from your own organization, but I think a lot of nonprofits that we meet with, you said a third of the 50 million that your organization brought in 2020, a third of that was new money from new donors, new folks. In the year we're having right now, that's really stood out for me as I heard you say that. Can you speak to maybe some of the strategies specific that how do you get a new influx of people, especially in such a challenging economy and social situation?
I mean, it goes back to professional advisor interaction. We've looked at the numbers. A huge chunk of our new money comes from referrals from professional advisors. And if I were to rank the order, it's trust and estates attorneys, followed by wealth advisors, followed by CPAs, and just continuing to invest in those relationships, because money is moving. People are making decisions. That's one lesson I really learned this year, was just when we think everything is falling apart, and there are a lot of problems, of course, that are happening, there are still a lot of people who have money, and they're somewhat protected from the day-to-day fluctuations and the various things that are happening in the world. They have $250,000 of highly appreciated securities, or they have real estate, or they have something else, and they're looking to do something with that. Regardless of what's happening in the stock market, or what's happening in the economy, or what's happening with COVID-19, they're making decisions. So these professional advisors are making the referrals into us. So I can't say enough about investing time and energy into that, because money is being transferred, money is moving one way or the other, things are happening, and you just want to be in front of that.
Yeah, great advice. Let me just go to this next question here. I think this is from Darren. So Darren says a couple of question marks in this one, so we'll maybe take it in bite-sized pieces, Rick. So if you make a stock donation, can it still be considered a charitable gift? Does it lower your taxable income? And how does that work? I understand that no one pays the capital gains, but can you get any additional tax benefit from that?
I mean, the tax benefit is they get the charitable income tax deduction for the donation based on the value of that stock on the day it was donated. So there's a high and a low of the stock price for that day, and they just average that out. And that's what the value of the stock would be. And then that's donated. And again, 100% of that is usually subject to a charitable income tax deduction. As far as additional tax benefit, I mean, I don't think so. Usually the stock is sold and the net proceeds are put toward the cause. So there are other things someone can do with that stock besides donate it as an outright gift. You could put it into other types of vehicles, like a charitable gift annuity or a charitable remainder trust. And there's lesser of a tax benefit for doing so, because some of the income from the gift annuity or the trust will come back to that individual and be taxed. But the purest way to avoid taxes, I think, is just to make an outright gift of the highly appreciated, publicly traded, or closely held stock.
Darren's giving us a thumbs up on that. So Thank you for that, Rick. I don't know, we took us off track a bit. Wait, I think there might be another. Okay, that was Darren telling us we're good. Did you have more you wanted to go to on your slides, or was there something else you wanted?
No, those are the 5 slides, and I just wanted to make sure we had room for discussion about that. As I'd said before, those 5 slides were really created, Danette obviously and I talked about it, but it's been 15 years of me being in the development world, and those topics that you saw today or that we've addressed today just seem to be always coming back as opportunities for nonprofits to lean into. And I truly believe that if they did on all 5, or even if just a few of them, it would transform the way they take in new money and the relationships that they have with donors. So I highly recommend people on the in the webinar today just step back and say, can we do anything with any of these 5 topics? What would we address? What would we take apart? And it's not like this stuff happens overnight, right? I mean, the things that I do as the vice president, I'm still constantly building. I'm still constantly working. We have not perfected this by any means, but it's just the day-to-day strategic work that you're leaning into, and then the tactical, obviously. And so you end up seeing the fruits of those labors, and just maybe leaning in a little bit to the professional advisor piece. Sometimes I think of this work as almost being like an investigative journalist, where you reach out to professional advisors and you think, okay, this is my group. These are the people that I want to be connecting with. And then you realize, well, some of them will make referrals to me and some of them won't. So who are the ones that are making referrals to me, and how can I meet more people like that? So those individuals, those professional advisors, will sometimes introduce me to other professional advisors like them, or people who are working with clients of higher net worth and so on. And so I just feel like an investigative journalist, you just sort of follow the lead, right? You follow that lead and then the next lead. And pretty soon I'm working very differently than I was 2 years ago with the professional advisor community. I continue to continue to find the people that are most likely to work with us, or have clients who are most likely to work with us. So it's just a journey that you take as you get better and better at knowing which professional advisors are most likely to want to interact with you.
Thank you. Thanks, Rick. We do have a couple other follow-up questions. This is from Jamae Crowder over at Tiegerman. Hi, Jamae. How does a nonprofit take in the non-cash funds? Is it as simple as connecting with our bank?
Yeah, we have a finance team. And if you have a finance team of your own, the finance team will know how to do that. It's usually working with maybe a third party. We, for example, take in non-cash gifts of stock through UBS. UBS is our transfer agent. So we work with them to receive the dollars, and then they'll liquidate those and forward those along to us as the nonprofit. So there might be a third party that you're working with. And if you don't have that, then again, you could probably contract with a party to be able to do that if it's not appropriate for your own nonprofit to be able to interface in that way.
So I have a follow-up to, you mentioned earlier in your presentation the donor advised funds, and I hear a lot about that on the radio and in advertisements and things like that. I'm curious because some of the organizations that we work with on a regular basis are rather large and substantial organizations, and others are more on the grassroots and getting going and smaller side. Mm-hmm. Does that donor advised angle, does that work in those smaller organizations as well? And or are the cost involved? Because I'm assuming there's some sort of cost involved there. Is it still feasible for small organizations to take part in that?
I mean, to be a donor advised fund sponsor, there's some work involved there. I would say that I'm not sure that I would suggest that a nonprofit go and start sponsoring a donor advised fund for themselves. I mean, the ones that as I'm saying this, I'm thinking of the larger institutions that do it, but the smaller ones can just simply piggyback onto other donor advised funds that have already been set up. For example, the commercial donor advised funds like Fidelity, Schwab, Vanguard, or other national institutions that have donor advised funds. I mean, if people are just looking for a donor advised fund solution, they can set it up in all those ways, as well as obviously a community foundation. But part 2 is now they're going to make a distribution from that donor advised fund. you want them as a nonprofit to obviously make the distribution to you. So, so sometimes what people will say to us in community foundations is essentially, how can we get in front of the donors who are donating to the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation? And what we say sometimes is, the people who are donating to us are probably the same people who are donating to you. What's your story? How are you telling the story? And are you creating a compelling argument for why people should help you and contribute to your organization? So I don't think that it's an ace in the hole to have a donor advised fund of your own at the nonprofit. It's more important to show people what the resources are around them, so that they can take advantage of those. And then obviously you stay close to them to make sure that they continue to work with you.
Great. Folks, do we have any additional questions for Rick? You can just put it in the chat if you would like to ask any additional questions. So anything you want to, unless a question comes in, Rick, anything specific you want to close with?
Just that I just want to reinforce it can be daunting to think about some of the topics that we talked about today, or just you sort of rule yourself out as an institution and say, oh, we're too small for that, or we can't do that. And I would highly suggest, again, you just sit down with your team and look at all of it and say, well, what can we do? And how can we fit this into our day-to-day and week-to-week and month-to-month? And know that it's a slow build to get to where you want to go. And if you can't do it internally, look at what your external resources are. Do not rule that out. There's lots and lots of partners, professional partners you could be working with that can help you. And so part of my mission sometimes in doing talks like this is I don't want to just be informative. I want people to pick a few things that they can then take and run with, because otherwise it's just information and it's nice to know, but they don't end up applying it, and they're kind of just back to where they always were, because they haven't made any changes to the way they do business. So that's why I say just pick apart a few things, just see what is the right size for that particular organization, and do the things you need to do to build that narrative and help the donors understand what all their options are, and obviously be there as a resource for them to make those connections as possible, and ultimately build your own asset base and work towards your own mission.
So Eileen Minogue over at the Book Fairies has a quick comment here. She says, great advice. I especially love the idea of networking with financial advisors. They are a conduit to potential giving. Really great, and really an eye opener for a lot of us. You know, you mentioned the advisors, the trust and estates attorneys, as well as obviously CPAs, you know, who are oftentimes that most important trusted advisor to their clients. So
yeah.
So
absolutely.
Yeah.
And Tommy, just to jump off of that, I have heard on more than one occasion professional advisors, when they're stuck and someone says to them, hey, you know, I am kind of interested in being philanthropic. What do you suggest? Well, what do you think that professional advisor is going to do if they're not really well versed in the conversation? They're going to say, well, I give to such and such, or, you know, I heard a client does this. So if they feel like they're caught off guard, they're just going to go with the easiest things that are top of mind. So obviously you want to be on their short list. You want to make sure that they think about you and say, hey, I just talked to Tommy and he's telling me about this and it sounds pretty exciting. Right. So I just can't underscore that enough. The fact that you want to be present, you want to be somebody that they call, even if it's not, I mean, real success is when they call you, even if the client isn't necessarily interested in donating to you, because they know that you're a terrific nonprofit resource for them, and you can point them in the right direction. Eventually that will come in to your favor, because you will probably get a referral of significance at some point, because you are that trusted resource. So yeah, absolutely conduits. Lots and lots of money is flowing behind the scenes that none of us are aware of, none of us know about. And all we want to do is be in front of some of those transactions, because that money is going to go somewhere else. Mm-hmm. The money is going to find its way somewhere. And you want them to be thinking of you.
Yeah, you know, out of sight is out of mind, and you got to stay on the radar with people, and certainly keying in with those financial advisors specifically. They know about money and movement. So we're just about at time. So Rick, I just want to thank you for this incredible information, and I have a couple of closing remarks. I am Tommy DeMisa from the Vanguard Insurance Agency. We are one of the founding members of the Nonprofit Resource Hub. And this has been an exciting journey creating the hub, because we're very keyed in, as my partner Ed mentioned up at the front of the meeting, into this sector. It's incredibly important to us as a firm, but it's incredibly important to us as the Nonprofit Resource Hub. So I just want to thank everybody for attending the webinar. We will be sending out a survey. I know a lot of it get a lot of surveys, and sometimes we don't complete them, but it would really help us out to bring you the best information going forward, the best topics. So let us know what we're doing right. Let us know where we can improve, and please don't hesitate to go to our website, nonprofitresourcehub.org, and become a nonprofit member of the organization. As Ed mentioned earlier, there is no charge, and we will have a recording of this meeting with Rick, as well as his contact information was shared in the chat earlier. So with that, we'll say thanks again, Rick. I appreciate it, and thanks everybody for attending. Have an incredible day and happy holiday season. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rick.